Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So let me make sure I'm up. I've been having a lot of trouble getting online recently. Hopefully it will be resolved by Wednesday, however. So let's make sure my sound is good. And my sound is good. And I see myself moving and shaking. Well, good Sunday, everybody. Hope everyone had a pretty decent Sunday. Just for a few announcements. See if anybody comes. Coming next Wednesday, I have Grant Cameron is going to be here at 5 p.m. That is going to be an amazing show. So Grant is a UFO researcher. It's like this interplay between UFO and consciousness. He's a fascinating guy. Absolutely fucking fascinating. That's going to be at 5 p.m. And the other one is going to be Hard Bastard. Hard Bastard is going to be here at 7 p.m. And before I start, I always do this, and at least I'm trying to make a habit of it. Guys, I want to thank you all for your support. I honestly really did appreciate when the channel went down the live stream and people came on and were really nice about it, essentially giving me this kind of push of support. The weird part about it, it felt bizarre because it puts you in a situation where you kind of feel like you're being silenced or you're being put in a corner, or like you did something wrong even though you know you didn't do anything wrong. It's like pushing up against resistance. But nevertheless, I guess my point is thank you guys. I appreciate your support. Absolutely. So oh, Brom, thank you, man. Good looking out. I appreciate it, Brom. And leave a comment, dude. Leave a comment. I had a bunch of other videos that I was going to do. And I saw a video that came up in my queue. Hard Bastard is going to be on the show on Wednesday. And it was a video about Jimmy Dore. Hard Bastard is not on the left. And so I was curious about what that video was. And he asked the question, he said, Jimmy Dore is experiencing cognitive dissonance. Essentially working at TYT. Is calling a break in Jimmy Dore's psychology. I watched the video. It's not too long. I watched the video. And I got to be honest, my initial disposition was I was going to rip that video apart. Jimmy Dore is in my sandbox. Hard Bastard is not. And so I was going to rip that video apart. Then I tried to be fair about the video. And I tried to think about it from the standpoint of actually listening to his point. Like, what is the point that he's trying to get at? Not just the point he's trying to get at. Does he have a point? Does he have a point? Yes and no. If I'm being honest, yes and no. In the videos that he gave, kind of. But I want to add more context to that, because I think that it's more interesting than just saying yes or no. Like this, it's not that flat of an answer. So for the first part, I'm going to show part of what HB said. HB's biggest point was, just to summarize, Dore has been very strong against this whole Russian narrative stuff. Like, if you've seen his videos over the past few weeks or the past few months, he has been animated going headlong at lefty networks that have been pushing the Russia nonsense. Now, the wild part about that is, I've said it myself on this video, on my own channel, like, you understand that you're on the same network with the people who are pushing this. I mean, there's no way around that point. It's like, clearly he has to know that. One of the videos, he calls people who are pushing it a useful idiot. And it's like, but you are on the same network. Now, personally, at the time, I don't necessarily see anything wrong with this. You can have different perspectives on the same network. You can have somebody who believes one thing and somebody else who believes something else, and those guys bump heads. HB is making somewhat of a more subtle point, though. And like I said, we need to talk about it because we need to flesh it out, because I think it's a little bit more nuanced. I am doing this video to some degree to hold myself accountable. What I mean is, I like Dore, and because I like Dore, I give him the benefit of the doubt, maybe more than I should give him the benefit of the doubt. That doesn't mean I believe he should leave TYT, nothing like that. I just mean, in videos I do about Dore, I'm somewhat biased in how I see Dore. That's why I'm airing this out, because I think it's an interesting topic. It's something that people talk about all the time. People always push him about leaving TYT and everything else. And HB's point, his main overriding point is, and I think I'm explaining it correctly, how can you say that these guys who are pushing the Russian nonsense and who are pushing this kind of mainstream media democratic narrative are either sellouts or they're lying to you, while at the same time working for a network that's doing the exact same thing? That's his main point. Bringing in the $20 million on top of that. Now, he doesn't make that point crystal clear, but it's there. The insinuation that he's making is there. I'm gonna play his first, and I'm gonna play the first one. I'm gonna interject just so you can know when the second one is coming up, and then I want to talk about it because, like I said, HB has a point, but I think it's more nuanced. I don't think he's completely right with his video, but he may be right. Let's take a look. This is the first one.
Here's the situation. If you work for the Young Turks or an outlet, you can have, I think, one of two reasonable positions. You can either believe that somehow working for the Young Turks, even though they clearly are not a credible outlet, they lie to the public, they engage in the Trump-Russia bullshit. But, you know, you could possibly tell yourself or believe that they give you editorial control and somehow work it out in your mind. Okay, that I can understand. But what position you cannot have is that media or left-wing media that engage in the Trump-Russia bullshit are horrible and McCarthyite and are part of the problem. You cannot have that position and then be working for this outlet. Now, let me explain what I mean. We're first going to go over what Jimmy originally said, and we're going to go over the backtrack. So let's first, as a reminder, by the way, this was a long segment. This isn't everything that he said about it. This is just the major portion of the rant, and there have been multiple rants, not anymore since he's kind of backed off. But
you can't say that Trump is a Putin puppet and then give him $80 billion more to go do military action around the world at the behest of Putin, apparently, right? And you can't say he's an existential threat and a Putin puppet and then vote to give him expanded warrantless wiretapping abilities, which is what the Democrats did. Adam Schiff did that. So when they tell you that he's an existential threat and he's a Putin puppet, they're lying. They're lying.
So you've clearly demonstrated, and you're correct, that people that do this are lying. Is lying, deliberate lying, acceptable for a news outlet? Is that credible? It's a good question that you have to ask yourself if you work for a news outlet.
And if you repeat it and you're on a lefty news show, you are what they call a useful idiot. And you've lost your way. And you don't know what your mission is anymore. If you call yourself a lefty and you're doing a lefty news show and you're pushing this Russia scare bullshit, you are no longer a progressive.
These people believe so strongly. I'm not a progressive, but I do respect any person who has a belief system and they adhere to it and they are principled, even if I don't agree with them. You've made clear, Jimmy, in this video that you view progressivism as something that should be a principled thing, that you call out bullshit when you see it, and that the standard you've set is that by lying about this Trump-Russia bullshit, you betray the very core values that you believe in. So how can you then say the things that you say in the next video? We're not done this video, but the next video is...
You're a useful idiot. Okay, there's a little bit more to this. So there's the Nunez memo that came out.
All right, we don't need to see this part. So there's one more part that I want to add to this. Now, just for a quick caveat, when they tell you, let me make sure. Yeah, when they tell you that Trump is a Putin puppet, they're lying. That's what Jimmy Dore said. And if you're a lefty media outlet and you're carrying that story, you're a useful idiot. That's what he said. I just want to nail that down. Let's keep going. Let's go to the next. And this is the second one.
Now, time passed. I guess Cenk talked to him or someone talked to him. And now listen to what he has to say on the subject.
So anyway, so that's why, and it seems at this point, I feel like it's a losing.
Bread moth, but repeating Russia billions of times makes it true, though. Well, that's the thing. I mean, he acknowledges both of them are not true. And now he's going to talk about what he's trying to do. And then we get into the infamous comments.
To try to remind people that we have two parties that are pro-Wall Street, two parties that are pro-management, two parties that are pro-war, and two parties that want to keep you from single payer. That's what people do. And that is why when the left talks exclusively about Trump being a Russian, whatever, you're doing the bidding of the right wing. You're doing the bidding of the corporations. That's what they want us to be doing.
So you are doing the bidding of the neocons and neoliberals. You're doing the bidding of the warmongers, of the corporations. But you work for an outlet that does these things. That is a massive cognitive dissonance. Uncle Bobbity questioning the patriotism of others because you have no protection from documented political bias and FBI agent text. Jimmy barking up his own leg. Yeah. Thank you, Uncle Bobbity. Saccharin, I'm a progressive like Jimmy Dore. The Democrats don't even stand for policy objectives anymore. That's true. They've lost their way in that regard. They are corporate shills and deserve to be exposed, which is why I support news outlets like you, HB. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So this is the thing. Jimmy has portrayed himself as a person that believes in the progressives' cause, and that there are certain things a person can do that would be considered deal breakers, fraudulent, things that would make you no longer a progressive. But he works for a news outlet that does these things. And we were wondering, well, what does this mean? Because people thought that he might leave the Young Turks. Let me now play what I think blew a lot of people's minds after the rant.
And so I'm trying to convince everybody who will listen to me and has a show that people listen to, I'm trying to get them to stop doing that. But they don't. They honestly believe, but a lot of people.
They honestly believe. No, you said they were lying.
Think
you
that
have to choose one.
Cenk Uygur took $20 million investment. By the way, it said it's an investment. That's not. Somebody didn't give $20 million to Cenk Uygur and say, now go do me favors.
He is now acting like it is not a big deal that Cenk accepted $20 million from Jeffrey Katzenberg and the Democratic kingmakers. So not only do you backtrack on all of the things that you've said in regards to the Trump-Russia coverage, you're now criticizing people and acting like we're being ridiculous for pointing this out. Are you fucking serious? This is not ethical. This is unethical. By your own standards, this is unethical. That's the problem. If you didn't say anything, then I could see people not making an issue. But by your own goddamn standards, you're being completely unethical. This is outrageous. This is completely unacceptable. Again, for a person that claims to have the beliefs that you did in the first video, you can't have both of these beliefs at the same time. This is cognitive dissonance. You have to pick one.
All right, so his main point is the Young Turks is pushing something that you yourself are completely against. Early on, when they tell you that the Russian nonsense, essentially they're lying, and if you're a lefty media outlet and you're carrying it, then you're a useful idiot. Fact is, those two things don't fully conflict. I know what he's getting at, and he does have a point on this, but they don't conflict. What I mean is, it's the sentence structure. The sentence structure, to some degree, disproves what he's saying. At least for this specific clip. Because, again, I think if I'm being completely honest, I understand what he's getting at, but I don't necessarily know if he's right, at least what he's showing. They're lying. Okay, they, meaning media. And if you repeat it, and you're a lefty news network, then you're useful with it. He's making a distinction between the media versus TYT. What I mean is, from our bastard's position, from our position, TYT looks like a lefty media outlet. They're like MSNBC light from our perspective. From Dore's perspective, Dore is part of the TYT family. Because he's part of that particular family, he doesn't look at himself as being part of the media establishment. He looks at, like an MSNBC or CNN, he looks at those guys as being a media establishment, not realizing that he himself is part of a media establishment. This is somewhat an issue of perspective. HB looks at Cenk and says, that guy's lying. The Russia thing is nonsense. That guy's lying, and Jimmy Dore knows he's lying. That's the perspective. Now, assume for the moment that Jimmy Dore's perspective is what I just said. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, these guys who are pushing the narrative, the media outlets, looking at himself, TYT, and these other guys as being lefty news outlets, in which case, looking at those guys as being useful idiots. If he's not looking at them as being lying, then there's no cognitive dissonance. Like, cognitive dissonance in this case requires two separate point of views that eat each other. He doesn't necessarily have a point of view that eats each other, at least not based on what he's saying. It's one thing of saying, I think the Russia thing is nonsense. You have somebody else on another network that says, I think the Russia thing makes perfect sense and I'm pushing this particular narrative. There's only a conflict if Dore believes that Cenk is lying. Now, you can make the point of saying, well, it doesn't really matter if he's lying. Yeah, it does, at least to make the argument of cognitive dissonance. I mean, it doesn't trespass on his values. Yes, it will be aggravating. Yes, they will bump heads. Yes, he will be pissed off royally often. And clearly, he's flipped out multiple times on this particular front, and he's right to flip out. He should be upset about it. It's aggravating. I can imagine extremely aggravating to see the direction that the network has gone in. Again, MSNBC light. The question becomes, is this one of those things where Dore is too close to it? And this is what I mean when I say it's more nuanced. Like I said, my first tenor of this was to rip the video apart. And then as I started thinking about it, I started, well, wait a minute. You like Dore, so you always give Dore the benefit of the doubt when you're talking about him, or when you're analyzing something that's associated with him. Assume for the moment that you're looking at it like somebody else will look at it who doesn't necessarily have any kind of, doesn't like or dislike him, just observing him. Now, Dore himself may take Cenk as being earnest. Assume for the moment that he's taking him as being earnest. Is it possible that Dore is just mistaken? Like, in the same way that I look at Dore and I give him the benefit of the doubt, is it possible that Dore is giving Cenk the benefit of the doubt? You get $20 million. And the reason why I say this is, under normal situations, there's a very perspective of looking at the world. Of saying, if somebody is getting $20 million, that person is doing something to get the cash. In this case, HB is trying to make this point of, well, certainly, what's his name is bought. Certainly the network has gone in a particular direction that has been towing the Democratic narrative. That's the way I think HB is looking at it. Now, if you're looking at it that way, and you have no ties to anybody in this particular organization, this outfit, and you say, he looks like MSNBC like, and it looks like they're towing this Russian narrative. From HB's standpoint, MSNBC or TYT is a news network. And Jimmy Dore is saying they're lying. These media networks are lying. Well, from HB's standpoint, that's a media network. Do they tilt their coverage in a direction of the cash? That's what HB is saying. Essentially, that they've been bought, that they've been sold out, that they tilted this particular Democratic direction because the money greases the wheels to some degree. With Dore pissed off at the other networks, but can't necessarily bring himself to directly confront the fact that he is also on a particular network with somebody who's leading their coverage in that direction. Like I said, I don't necessarily think there's a cognitive dissonance there with what was shown, because again, you can make that point of, well, Dore doesn't believe Cenk is lying about it. I make the point that cognitive dissonance requires lying. That being said, just because everything that Thief said in that particular video is technically true, meaning, no, if Cenk is taking the money, if Cenk just has this position, those things are separate and distinct from one another. in every other context, we don't look at it that way, meaning lefties. And there's no other context where we look at somebody getting a large amount of cash and we just give it a pass. Under normal circumstances, when people are getting cash, the question becomes, at least from the lefty standpoint, what are they doing for the cash? What are they doing for the money? If you're getting that much money, you're getting that much money for a reason. So it is certainly, you know, on this particular part of the sandbox, we look at those things in that way. Well, Dore's kind of making this point strongly. No, they're just taking money. It's an investment. I mean, they're not doing anything for the money. They're not bending their media network, and et cetera, et cetera. Let's take a look at this.
Well, that's good. So here we are. We're going to do our first live stream. I'm going to guess that that most of the people who would tune into our normal live stream are going to tune into the Young Turks tonight because they know they're going to live stream, but they don't know we are. I just decided to do it today. So I found out the Young Turks didn't want me on their show tonight, and I was like, well, fuck it, I'll do my own show. That's why I built the studio in the first place, because they couldn't fill up their panels with enough neoliberals, Hillary voters. Well, we don't want to give the audience what they want, Jimmy. We know that they like progressives, but we're going to fill our panels with fucking Hillary voters. Anyway, so that's why we're here, which is good, by the way, because it opens a lane for me. So now my show is taking off like crazy. It's time, and it's the greatest. It's the greatest. I never sold out theaters before, but now I do. And why? It's because I didn't sell out. And now we do sell out theaters.
Because we didn't sell out, and now we do sell out theaters. All of this being in the context of they're not letting me on the show. Meaning the object of it was specific. The object of it was straightforward. He's pissed off. Now the question becomes, is this one of those things somebody said in anger because they were pissed off, or is it one of those things somebody was said because they were angry and it was true? I don't know. I have no idea. I do know that Jimmy is close to Cenk, and I do know Jimmy being close to Cenk, he probably doesn't necessarily see that particular flaw. And not just see that particular flaw, would he be able to allow himself to see that type of flaw? Meaning, would he be able to work with Cenk if he honestly thought Cenk was leaning in the direction of the cash, or leaning in the direction of the people who gave him that cash, towing this kind of democratic narrative? I don't know. I have a hard time believing that he would, which leads me to think that he just doesn't know, or he doesn't believe it. He doesn't believe it. In fact, there's no way for us to know. There's no way for us to know. But that's kind of why I make this point of, like, kind of, ish. Is like, not necessarily in the videos that he showed cognitive dissonance. But as I watched it, I thought to myself, well, shit, man, the video that you have, Jimmy Dore did say they sold out. Or at the very least, strongly implied. So I guess it's more gray than that. Look, my main point, just to summarize, whether or not it's cognitive dissonance, it depends on whether or not Jimmy Dore believes that these guys are lying. If Dore is strong as he's been on this particular point, the Russian narrative, and pushing back on the stuff that, you know, this kind of neoconish behavior that he's been pushing back against, you know, including against his own network. If he full well believes that the reason why they are towing this Russian nonsense is because of the money they got from this kind of democratic contributor, then yeah, then he would be right. There would be a magnificent cognitive dissonance at that point. That would him knowing they're acting in bad faith and still staying with the network that's acting in bad faith, while at the exact same token attacking other networks that he believes are acting in bad faith. If he doesn't believe it, however, meaning if he full well believes that Cenk just believes this and that the money in this case is purely coincidental and they're just towing a particular narrative because they're towing a particular narrative, then no, there's no cognitive dissonance. That being said, being strong is saying, because I'm not bought, and then making a face while you're talking in the context of the other network who didn't necessarily want you on that show that night, that's slightly different. HB didn't have that video. That video would have made the point stronger. I couldn't rip the video apart because I knew that other video existed. It's like, fuck. I was stuck with what I had. That's what it boiled down to. When I saw, it was a good video. I'll say watch it. Here's the argument. And I listened to the video, and like I said, my first thought was I'm going to rip this video apart. And then as I was listening, I was like, I see so many people that keeps pushing with this idea that Jimmy should leave TYT. And I always say, well, why? Well, what's the point? What's the big deal? You can have a network that you don't necessarily agree with. You're going to have people on the network that disagree. But am I wrong on that? Like, it's just one of those things where I'm being way too fair in the way I'm looking at this. I kind of look at it as it only matters if he believes that they're lying. That's all. That's the only way it matters. Otherwise, you can't say it's cognitive dissonance. If he believes that they are bought, however, that's different. That's different. So, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one. So, I don't know the answer. So let's see. Let's bring people in. So what do y'all think? I've given my spiel. I don't think this is cognitive dissonance, at least not in the clips that he's given, but I understand where he's going with it, meaning I understand his point. And yes, that will create a magnificent amount of friction. That's the first part. The second part, it is to some degree a cognitive dissonance from the standpoint of the other video where he's explaining that the money doesn't mean they're bought, while at the same token in the other video saying, because I haven't sold out. The implication being somebody else did. So, the sellout in that specific case means cash. I don't know. I don't know. So, let's see. Terry J. Or maybe it's just they've been jinked for years. Yeah, that's what I think, Terry. That's what I think. That's kind of why I asked the question that way. Like, me looking at this, I look at this and say, I like Dore. Because I like Dore, it doesn't occur to me that Dore would lie for something like this. But by the same token, that's my own bias, is kind of speaking. If it was anybody else that I didn't know, I wouldn't think of him that way. It's possible that in the same way, Dore looks at Jink that way, meaning he's known him for a very long time. So he wouldn't necessarily jump to the conclusion that he's acting this way purely because of some kind of motivation from donors or taking the network in a particular direction. By the same token, does he actually know that? In every other capacity, when we're looking at politics and politicians, we look at these things from the standpoint that cash influences behavior. Is that true in every other case except for this? That's what I'm stuck with. That's what I'm stuck with. But, A. Mares. Love your work, Jamal. Wishing you a great Sunday. Ah, thank you, Mares. Thank you. Guys, I appreciate the super cash. The stable genius progressive. Did you guys hear the news? Tulsi Gabbard is corrupt now. Now sell out. Throw her in the bin with Bernie. Deep state and all. I haven't thrown Tulsi anywhere. Breaking the chains. HB wants you to have a wedge between the two left and make 3 because Jimmy is taking off. Yeah, but I just, like I said, it only works. Like his argument, though, only works if Jimmy Dore knows. Otherwise, there's no cognitive dissonance. Like it's friction, yes. Fuck yeah. I would imagine he'd be pissed off a lot dealing with it. You can tell he's you know, apoplectic in many of those shows. But cognitive dissonance implies something else. It's well, actually, no. I'm wrong. Yeah, I'm wrong on this. Yeah, I'm wrong on this. I'm thinking hypocrisy. Cognitive dissonance is different. Yeah. I'm wrong on this. Cognitive dissonance is different. So I guess, yeah, man, these words are getting slippery. It depends on what you mean by cognitive dissonance. If you're boiling it down to like the bare minimum bar to get over the cognitive dissonance thing, where you're looking at it from the standpoint of you're saying two things and you're functioning in two ways that are opposite of one another. Like your network is pushing in one very specific direction and you're going in the other direction. You're attacking other networks while you're on that particular network. How are you doing that? Like, if that's your level, then yeah, that I would say that's somewhat indefensible. I mean, it's not indefensible from the standpoint of he can't do it. Of course you can, television networks are television networks. You got multiple shows. So it's not that. MSNBC can have 10 different programs. Those particular programs go in different directions. They don't have to say the exact same thing. So there's no issue with it, but we're not talking about from a political context. We're just talking about from a thought context, cognitive dissonance in a person's head, not necessarily in a physical matter reality. Yeah, you're pushing in two different directions. You're pushing in two different directions. So it is both cognitive dissonance and self-interest that impels Jimmy to stay at TYT. He believes his friends and continues to rationalize TYT's behavior and benefits by doing so. So that was the other part. That's kind of what I'm getting at too, Garden. I'm wondering, is it one of those things we're close because we're close friends? You give the benefit of the doubt in a way that you wouldn't give the benefit of the doubt in a normal context. Like, assume for the moment that he didn't work at TYT. Assume Dore just had his own show, the Jimmy Dore Show. Assume he didn't know Cenk. Assume he didn't know any of those people. And Dore, being the way Dore is now, what would his perspective be towards TYT? Do you get my point? I'm trying to get this point across but I see what you mean. Like, if the person is close to the individual, they're not necessarily going to see those faults. If they're from a third person perspective looking at it, they're going to have a much different perspective than what someone else will. I don't know Cenk. I don't have the perspective of him in that way. I do know he came out and said vote Hillary, despite his network not necessarily wanting to do that. I do know he's been assiduously pushing this Russia narrative in addition to turning his network into this kind of MSNBC light. That's what I know. Was that influenced by getting an investment from some kind of contributor? I have no idea. I have no idea. Is it possible? Of course it's possible. Of course. Everybody functions to some degree on self-interest. So yeah. But do I know that? No. Now, if I am Dore and that's my friend, would I give my friend the benefit of the doubt? Probably yes. Probably yes. That's kind of why that's kind of why I'm asking this question aloud. I'm somewhat biased on this in the way I look at this. I'm curious what other people think about it. Jimmy is paying to have partnership with the network that pushes the same dangerous narrative as the mainstream media that Jimmy criticizes 24/7, captive for obvious. Yeah. It's not dissonance, it's infiltration, representation, opportunity. Good King Wansta. J. Scott, Jimmy pays TYT, all that super chat money goes to Cenk. Why do you think that? I don't know that. Jimmy is a working girl. Jimmy is not a working girl. Jimmy Dore is not a working girl. It's all looking more and more like BS to me. From Camp to Jimmy to Cenk. It's sad to watch and kind of gross. Deanna Pythia. Come on. There's no such thing as a perfect person. Nobody's going to meet that ideal because there is no such thing as a perfect person. All this stuff is somewhat relative to one another. There is no absolute. There is no standard. Dore is functioning in the way that any other human being would function in that situation. Just saying. What I'm asking is something slightly different. You can be on a television network and have different perspectives. I mean, yeah, Keith Olbermann, when he was on MSNBC, at the time, he was taking a much different tack than the other shows on the network. He was much fucking different hosts. Now, at this point, these networks tend to kind of go in a particular thread. But there's nothing stopping Dore from doing the show in the way that Dore is doing the show versus TYT doing theirs. It's just slightly weird and friction. Yeah, it creates friction. But I guess the cognitive dissonance thing is the question I was getting at. I thought that was more fascinating to me, that particular question. Because I can see what he's getting at. It's like you're in two separate directions. You're on a network and attacking another network in this way. HB was what he called a cult. LDS. Other than that, he seems rather secretive about himself. Yeah, I don't know anything about him. Excommunicate 1979. Who cares if Jimmy pays to get on the TYT? Jimmy's message hasn't changed and TYT offers his message a longer reach. Agreed. Agreed. Agreed, agreed, agreed. Absolutely agreed. When Jimmy stops talking about Russia and stops calling lefties useful idiots for Russiagate, I will believe his voice is suppressed. As of now, I see no reason for him to leave. Unlikely ally. Agreed. 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 I'm glad I'm not the only one who thinks that way. Because that's the argument. That's the argument I've always made. I was like, I don't see why he needs to leave. Like, I don't know the thing that pushes him out in this way. I think it's frustrating for him. Yeah. I think it probably pisses him off. Yes. Yes, it probably aggravates the shit out of him. It looks like it aggravates the shit out of him. But from that standpoint. Burnman23, from what I can tell, Tulsi Gabbard isn't an ideologue. No, she's not. She keeps evolving her views to get more enlightened and experience. That's what you want from a younger politician. That is exactly what you want from a younger politician. I think Jimbo has a contract with Cenk, and he can't talk shit till it's over. I don't know. I've seen Jimmy say some pretty intense stuff. I mean, if he was muzzled, I think they would have muzzled him a hell of a lot sooner than now. I mean, later than now. Sooner than now. Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't have, yeah. They would have muzzled him by now. Of course it is, Brahm. TYT was costing him money. He couldn't maintain the relationship. He makes money off of it. You talking about Jimmy? Yeah, of course he makes money off of TYT. I mean, I would imagine he gets paid by them to some degree. But I don't know. I don't know. But there's no way I believe that he's giving them their cash. Why would he do that? Like, Dore doesn't need TYT. I mean, at this point, not now. I mean, maybe when he first started to get that platform going. But at this point, Dore is a thing unto himself. In fact, usually it goes where people would say, I don't watch TYT except for Jimmy Dore and Secular Talk. That's the way I usually hear people say it. So. Oh, Rob Lanois, 5 stages of grievance. Jimmy is in denial stage. Oh, so you think that too. Wesley Walker Jr. Thank you, guys. Thank you. I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Yeah, this is why I'm asking this, man. This is so bizarre to me. This is why yeah, maybe it is cognitive dissonance. I think when I first started this, I was thinking from the standpoint of hypocrisy. But the standard is different. HB's argument is a little bit more subtle than that. It's how are you on a network doing this while at the same token attacking other networks for doing this? It's like, how does that work? How's that working? How are you pulling that one off in your head? That's what he's getting at. This is more so in his head, not necessarily any kind of level of hypocrisy. Now, the second question, or the reason why I said this is more nuanced than that, it's one conversation of is it cognitive dissonance? Fair enough. I would agree with him. Fair enough. To some degree, yeah. I would imagine this aggravates the shit out of Dore. It's another thing of, does he believe that the money is influencing behavior? That's different. And that was the thing I was challenging. That was the thing I was challenging. I don't believe Dore thinks it is. Now, the reason why I said this is more nuanced and more interesting is because I don't know that. Like I don't think Dore would be in the situation if he honestly thought that. But like Rob said, Rob making the point of he's in denial. He's in denial. And I think that's why HB sees it. I think HB looks at this purely from the standpoint of that guy is running a business. And like any other media network, which is what TYT is, they're in the business of making more cash. In this case, their message have slid in a direction that became more MSNBC-ish. It's like MSNBC-like. Yeah, man, I don't know. I don't know. I just have a hard time believing Dore would stay and put up with that if he honestly believed that this was an act. Like, I understand he believes that CNN and all these other guys are lying. If he honestly believed that Cenk was lying, I think he would walk. That's why I don't believe he thinks Cenk is lying. But then it's a separate question of, you know, somebody might say, well, it's besides the point whether he's lying or not. He's pushing this narrative. So, yeah, man. Yeah, there's no way he pays TYT. I don't think he pays TYT. But all of this is kind of besides the point. It's a network. It's not one show. Like, it's not. It's a network. I don't know what, you know, I don't, people making the argument that he needs to leave. I don't buy that argument. I just don't buy the argument. You can have multiple shows on a network. People are going to disagree on some of the things they talk about. The only thing you really need to believe is the person is playing with clean hands. If you believe the person is playing with clean hands, then there is no conflict in that sense. Now, somebody else can say you're somewhat motivated to believe the person is playing with clean hands. Maybe. But I don't necessarily think he needs to leave. Radioactive RX. Which came first, InfoWars or TYT? That's a good question. I don't know. TYT's been around for a long time. A very long time. I don't get the point. Is gossiping on colleges? What does that do for the cause? It's just pathetic. Gossiping. I guess it is somewhat gossiping. Cenk always shits on politicians for accepting money and makes the point that no one gives money without expecting anything in return, but somehow 20 million is different. Yeah, that's my point. 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 That's what I'm getting at. Our typical way of looking at the world is looking at through that lens, that very specific lens of, look, the reason why we push for this thing of money out of politics, this is why. This is why. I mean, ultimately, we don't like this idea that money is influencing the behavior of the politicians themselves. If you need a lot of money to get elected, you lean in the direction of the people who give you that money. I think that's somewhat straightforward. I don't necessarily think that's, insane. The point that people tend to make is, well, does that rule apply to the network also? That's just it. I don't know if that's true. I don't know. I don't know. So. NBC hired the CIA, so it's Operation Mockingbird aimed at the Vanguard Group. Well, not just that. Who did Dore say was part of the CIA? Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos. Jimmy's exhibiting inconsistent beliefs, such as Cenk is both a genuine progressive and natural Republican. To excuse Cenk's foreign policy neoliberalism is a cognitive dissonance, 100% cognitive dissonance. Red, white, blue dude. Cal is very naive in the way he goes about it. I think they just like him. Like, I honestly do. Look, when I'm looking at this, I look at this from the standpoint of, I don't think any of these guys are functioning in a way that has dark intent, if that makes sense. At least from the standpoint of Dore and Cal. I think both of those guys they're earnest. They come across as being earnest. If you've been friends with somebody for a very long time, won't you give that person the benefit of the doubt? I guess that's what I'm getting at. From their standpoint, they're not looking at him as being, malicious or just making shit up to make shit up. I think they actually believe him. I think they think he's being earnest and going about his business. TYT is paid by all channels under their banner. Majority reports Secular Talk, Riga Fire, Jimmy Dore, etc. It was never a secret. Mouse C. I guess it gives him more reach. Assuming Cenk really changes his friend Jimmy to be on network, well, you can take the Republican out of the party, but you can't take the party out of the Republican. By the way, guys, it's a business. TYT is a business. Like, I understand people take issue with them taking the money. It's a business. Like, I don't know what people expect for the business to do. Ultimately, if they want to grow, how are they going to grow if they're not going to get the money in order to grow? How? Like, but don't get me wrong. I understand the quagmire. Saying one doesn't make a defense for the other. I'm just saying both things are true. That's all I'm saying. You have a media company. That media company, like every other media company, wants to grow. In order to grow, they take an investment from somebody who's giving them cash. Now, this allows them to pay for content, pay for monitors, computers, salaries, etc. across the board, revamp. At some point, they're going to have to give that cash back, meaning there's going to have to be a profit on that investment. It's a business. That being said, it is also true that it is not insane for people to ask, if you're getting cash, is that influencing behavior? I don't think those things are in conflict. I think both of those things can be true. Joe Hickey, litmus test. Are you a liar? Yes, go home. No, proceed with politics. Is that too hard? Depends on what you mean by lie. Depends on what you mean by lie. Brom, any UFO talk tonight? Actually, Brom, yes. There's a new video that's been released. There's a new video up. In fact, I am going to do that now. How long is this going? All right, I'm going to kill this because you're right, Brom. Thank you. I'm going to do that now. Yeah, I'm having a UFO guest on Wednesday. Yeah, Brom, you might like that. Grant Cameron is going to be on Wednesday night. John Crabb. Jamal, have you seen the Netflix show documentary Wormwood about the CIA, MK Ultra, and biological weapons the United States used during the Korean War? I have not seen that video, but I do know we did some very bad things in the war. We killed 1/5 of that population. It's fucking amazing. It's fucking amazing. Just watch Secular Talk again, but his jank mannerisms irk me. Yes, I said that myself. I said that myself. Yeah, I've said that myself. Do you remember when this happened? He went after Sane Progressive on one of those videos. Like, he flipped out. This talking about Cal. And he was like, get the fuck out the way. He was talking about Justice Democrats. He was trying to defend Justice Democrats. He made like an hour video flipping out, screaming at the top of his lungs the entire video. And he was using, yeah, his mannerisms. It was slightly weird. Greening Libertarian. Would you work at News Network with HB, Jimmy Dore, Cal Kalinske, Luke, and Tim Pool? I don't know who Tim Pool is. I don't know who Luke Verdowski is. Dore, hell yeah. HB, yeah. Cal, yes. I don't know who the other two are. But I like HB. I've always liked HB. He had a, I don't necessarily agree with all of his stuff. I don't agree with a lot of his stuff, if I'm being honest. But he was nice to me when I first started. He was nice to me when I first started. And so there's always this little thing of, I appreciate him being fair to me when I started. That's all. But yeah, I wouldn't, yeah, I'm not against that. I'm not against it. If you're pointing out the BS narrative that the media puts out, you're not my enemy. You're not my enemy. We can have this conflict on like policy stuff. Don't get me wrong, like we can bump heads on policy. You can make your argument. We can do what we got to do from that standpoint. Corruption shouldn't be a part of the process. It should not be a part of the process. So, HB is not progressive, hence differences. Yeah. But at the very least, on the point of like being above or beyond politics, I don't think it's one of those things where you can't necessarily find middle ground with guys like HB. So I don't think it's one of those unpardonable divides. I don't even need to agree with each and everything that a person believes in. I just need to know that where they're coming from is an earnest place. At the very least, if the person is being earnest and they have some level of, I guess, empathy and ability, I guess, to grasp context, might be, you can at least try to make headway. So, but he does offer a fascinating perspective on some. Yeah, like on this, I think I actually agree with him. Like I said, when I first looked at the video, I was like, I'm gonna rip this fucking video apart. How dare you talk about Jimmy Dore? And as it went on, I was like, fuck, he's kind of right. And then I thought to myself, well, yeah, just because he's right doesn't necessarily mean he needs to lead TYT. Like I had to parse each of the thoughts because it was a few things. Yes, to some degree, this is a certain level of cognitive dissonance. You're on a network while attacking other networks for doing the exact same thing that your network is doing. So there's that. The second part becomes, is there a certain amount of hypocrisy in the position, attacking a position while at the same token being part of a network that pushes that particular position? Yeah, I get where he's coming from. I get where he's coming from. Leave Jimmy Dore alone. Yeah. Jink doesn't know how to silence Jimmy. Yeah, I don't think he does. I honestly do think, to some varying degrees, I think he has he has freedom to say what he wants. I don't really need any of these commentators for anything. After all, we are only talking about people who do commentary and comedy here, not actually on scene reporting and news. Yeah, agreed. What is it? Need is too strong. Yeah, need is too strong. Agreed with Copter. Who's Copter? Jimmy got stuck in a bad... Who? What's the last part? Jimmy got stuck in a bad situation. He may be thinking he can ride it out until Russian crap is over. Maybe. And like I said, I don't think he disagrees with Cenk. And in fact, I gotta be honest, I would prefer him not to leave TYT. I know that sounds strange, but if he wasn't on that network, there would be no pushback against anything that was said. Meaning, it's decent having somebody on that platform, major channel, debunking that stuff. I like that. I like that a lot. I don't necessarily want him to leave that perch. Jamal has a crush on Jimmy and leaps to defend him. Yeah, that's true, man. I do leap to he's in my sandbox. I'm tribal in that way. I'm tribal. Yeah. Progressives becoming reactionary. No, I don't think anybody's becoming reactionary. No, it's not that. I guess I'm asking a more subtle question. People always bring up this thing of Dore leaving TYT. And the last video that I did on that, my thing was, no, why should he? Well, he doesn't have to leave TYT. What's the point? He has an awesome platform. He gets to say whatever he wants to say for all intents and purposes. And it doesn't seem like he's being muzzled or silenced. So what's the point? Now, I take that perspective because, you know, it's possible I take that perspective just because I like Dore. And I think to myself, there's nothing wrong with the situation that he's in. Somebody else, though, who doesn't like or dislike Dore, so looking at him from a more objective point of view, may not necessarily take that perspective. And I have heard a lot of people make that thing of leaving TYT. So, part of this video is to discuss the cognitive dissonance thing. I thought it was an interesting perspective. That's all. And this is definitely something that comes up. It's hard. Look, I'm out-ended on this. It is hard to watch. Not hard. Hard is not the right word for it. It's weird to watch Dore show on the same network. It's very bizarre. Oftentimes when I'm watching him do his thing, I'm like, yeah, Jimmy is right. You're right. You're absolutely right. And then in my head, though, it's like, but the other guy is completely in the opposite direction of you. Now, there's nothing wrong with that one iota. I mean, even on The Intercept, they had those guys in conflict with each other. Glenn Greenwald and I can't think of the other guy had to debate the other reporter. So even on the same network, people bump heads, they clash. It's still slightly weird. People, for whatever reason, want this kind of sanitized situation where everybody is this kind of own echo chamber. I don't want the echo chamber in that way. I don't want the echo chamber. Cenk's opinion gets on my nerves, but I don't know that that position or that opinion is purely motivated by cash. It is possible that that's actually what he believes. It is possible he's terrified of Donald Trump. All sorts of things are possible. But what is true, though, is if Dore was not associated with TYT, meaning he's not his friend, and he was in my position, I strongly suspect that the position he would be taking against TYT would be much harsher and much more strident. And I have a hard time believing somebody else would too. Because at that point, he wouldn't be looking at them as we're on the same network. It would be him looking at them in the same way that HB is looking at Dore, if that makes sense. Dore is on a television network for all intents and purposes. HB is not. HB is looking at Dore and TYT as being a network in the same way that Dore is looking at CNN and MSNBC as being networks. They're relative to one another. HB is to Jimmy Dore what Jimmy Dore is to MSNBC. I'm just saying, if he wasn't in the spot of being on a network, he would look at TYT in the same way. And he would probably be attacking them in the same way, and probably in much harsher terms. So, does him being associated and friends with Cenk change that? Yeah, to some degree, it softens him. It softens him. Now, I'm not saying him being softened on this is bad. I'm just saying it just is what it is. Is what it is. Captain Obvious, exactly, Jamal. Jimmy would be much harsher on them if he wasn't part of them. That's why I want him to leave. J. Scott, the best you would get out of Jimmy is subliminal shots. Subliminal shots. Scott Sanders, unfair, Jamal. What's unfair? Explain, Scott. Come on, Scott. What am I saying that's fair? Jimmy is yelling at Cenk every chance he gets. No, I agree. I agree. No. You're missing what I'm saying. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I've said multiple times he's not being muzzled. I've said multiple times that I've even shown the video where he's going after the network, the main network. That's not what I'm saying. What I said was he would be going after them much harsher if he was not friends with him. And not just not going after him much harsher if he wasn't friends with him. When he's using the term sellout, what do you think he means when he's using the term sellout? Now, personally, I think he was just pissed off. I think he was pissed off, and I think that's the thing that he hit him with when he was pissed off. But it's possible that that's true. It's possible it's true. Now, the catch is, if Dore was not close to Cenk, if they were not friends, if he didn't have this bond where he thought this guy was trustworthy and earnest, and he was looking at this from a third-person perspective, are you telling me that he wouldn't have a different take on this? Like, you don't think he would be a little bit more skeptical, a little bit more cynical when he's analyzing the coverage that these guys have been doing on the Russia thing versus the money that they've taken versus what their coverage used to be when the network was originally started. It's like, come on, be fair. Jamal beefing with young progressive. I am not. I am not. Jeremy Chase. Jimmy Dore needs to use that platform as long as possible. Agreed. Hard Bastard is an idiot. Hard Bastard's not an idiot. Come on, Jeremy. By the way, I don't think Hard Bastard said he needs to leave. I don't think he said that. I know some people do. I don't think he said he needs to leave. At least I don't remember it. But it is cognitive dissonance. What he's saying is not unfair. What he's saying is not unfair, man. What he's saying is not unfair at all. Elephants on Coke. TYT is not great, but still, in general, yes, and allied progressives agreed. It's not as if Cenk is bad as Democratic Party chump like Bill Maher. Hate to defend Cenk, but there's a difference between TYT and MSNBC. I always say MSNBC light. I always say MSNBC light. I always think it's like a shade over. For example, like most of the Justice candidates or Justice Democrat candidates that I know seem pretty decent. I like Paula Swearengin. I like what's his name? Jaffe. I like there's a few, one or two that I met that I actually like. They are to the left. I mean, when you're talking about policy positions, they are to the left. They may be more reformist than you are, but they are not. I mean, they're different than the Democratic Party. They're further to the left. In fact, many of those groups, like Brand New Congress, didn't even want to be considered a Democrat at that point. Those guys were like, no, we're just running in the party. It's like we're just using the dead husk of the Democratic Party in order to get our candidates in. They saw themselves as being something functionally different, if that makes sense. So, yeah. Jamal needs to fall under Progressive Voice's leadership and do a 24-hour pro-TYT fundraising stream. That's wrong, Garneau. That's wrong, Garneau. HB is no idiot. I wish he was a progressive. I don't know why he's not a lefty. Garneau, if Jamal does that, I would donate $1,000 to Super Cash. Oh, that's funny. That's funny, Brom. That's funny. That is funny. G. Cole. No, Cenk is definitely worse because he operates under the guise of being independent media. Well, this is kind of my point. This is kind of why I'm doing this video. This goes into kind of why I'm doing this video. So the original thing was talking about Hard Bastard's point, the cognitive dissonance. I have to agree. There is somewhat of a cognitive dissonance. Having a cognitive dissonance in this situation, though, doesn't necessarily mean you need to leave TYT. Let's nail that down. The other part to this is, in the same way that when I analyze stuff dealing with Dore, I have somewhat of a bias. Does Dore have somewhat of a bias when he's interacting with Cenk? Meaning, if this is not on the up and up in the way that he thinks this is on the up and up, would Dore be in a position to see it? I don't think these are unfair questions. That's all. I don't think it's unfair. Forsaken Companion. Isn't Progressive Voice like 14 or something? Yes, he's like 16 or something. He attacked Caitlin Johnston. Jimmy should just be a guest for TYT, problem solved. No, I don't think he needs to leave. I don't think he needs to leave. Anna Maxa. I think people are coming together on being third party and independent and not partisan. That would be great. That would be great. Yeah. Coming together in that way. That would be great. Progressive Voice threw Jimmy under the bus. No way. Are you shitting me? Oh, you talking about when with Caitlin Johnson? Yeah. To ban logic because of personality is just crazy. That's essentially what HB did. To abandon logic because of personalities is just crazy. What do you mean? He abandoned logic? What are you talking about? His point was fair. I mean, at least in that case. I don't watch all of HB's stuff. But in that very specific context, his argument is straightforward. How can you be... Yeah. I disagree with you on that one, man. Jimmy Dore's mental model of Cenk is a reform Republican with right-wing instincts. That's consistent with the facts. Mark P. Yes. Yeah, kind of. But cognitive dissonance is different. I mean, Again, this kind of goes back to, it depends on what you mean by cognitive dissonance. This is what I mean when I said it's not the easiest thing. It's somewhat slippery. It requires more talking about it. Even if Dore believes that, let's say, right, he's somewhat of a reformed Republican that's somewhat to the right with corporate instincts. But HB's point still remains. I mean, I don't think it's a situation where he thinks, I don't think he's staying with him thinking that Cenk is doing something untoward, if that makes sense. Like, I think he thinks Cenk is earnest. I don't think he's making that up. I've always said that. I think he looks at him as being a friend, and I don't think, like anybody else looking at one of their friends, he's taking him as being earnest. He's taking him as he has him, as he sees him. So I don't think Dore's, doing anything malicious or making anything up. But cognitive dissonance is somewhat of a different standard. It's not, I don't think it has to do with making anything up. I think his point is, you're going balls out at these other networks. And look, like I said, the perspective that HB gave on this, I don't know if it fully makes this point, but it kind of gets you there. When they tell you that Trump is a Putin puppet, they are lying. And if you're carrying it, you're a useful idiot. That's consistent. I think the catch becomes, yeah, but you're with those useful idiots. It's like, how do you wrap those things? I don't know what it depends on what HB's standard is. That's what I'm getting at. The cognitive dissonance thing is purely dependent on the standard of the person who's making it. So, ball bags is fucking race-baiting dildos. What? Let's see. Jeremy Chase, King Bastard is not an idiot. I like you. I love the things you say on Jimmy's videos. I'm sure you'd love Hard Bash if you watch his stuff. I watch some of his stuff. I watch some of his stuff. Sometimes he has me laughing my ass off. Yeah. He's going to be on the channel on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Hard Bass, yeah. I think I was talking to my mom, and I was like, yeah, Hard Bass is going to be on the show. She said, Hard, what? I was like, his name is Hard Bastard. She's like, what? It's like, what the hell? Yeah. It's funny. Yeah, man. All right, I'm going to end this. There's a UFO vid that I want to put up before it gets too far into the future on it. But just to wrap this up, the original point of this, to summarize, I always feel I need to summarize as we go around Robin Hood's Bond on these. Hard Bastard makes a video saying Jimmy Dore has cognitive dissonance. Essentially, he's experiencing cognitive dissonance. And his point is, he's showing a video where he's saying essentially that the press telling you about the Russia stuff, this red baiting, is they're lying to you. They know they're lying to you. And giving video footage where he's showing that they're lying, instances where they're lying. Hard Bastard making the point of, okay, you have this perspective that these guys are lying and that lefties are useful idiots if they're towing this line, if the lefty media, while simultaneously saying that it's okay for getting $20 million and that $20 million is in no way affecting coverage, despite that particular media network doing the exact same coverage for all intents and purposes as Democratic media. They're towing the exact same narratives. If I'm not mistaken, Hard Bastard follows the narratives and showing how the narratives coincide with essentially lefty media, Democratic thought, or Democratic narratives that are taking place. His point is, are having these two positions at the exact same time, I can affiliate and be okay with these guys having two diametrically opposed positions. Is that cognitive dissonance? Especially when you're going after them that way and you're saying that you have the standard of these people being useful idiots and these people are lying and everything else. And fact is, it just depends on what you mean by cognitive dissonance. It just kind of depends. It's like going all the way around Robin Hood's Bond, and ultimately where you end up is, it just depends on what you mean. Like, yeah, it just depends on what you mean by cognitive dissonance. I mean, technically, they're not completely diametrically opposed. Yeah, they're not diametrically opposed. They're just diametrically opposed on this very specific issue. I guess I keep making the point. It depends on whether or not Dore believes it. If Dore believes Cenk is being earnest. But see, again, that just depends on your standard. Yeah, the words are too slippery. He would have to define cognitive dissonance in this case. It just doesn't work. So Jimmy is having some conflicted feelings. He hates the Russian narrative. Yeah, agreed. Fools who's spouting it, agreed. But it still has to take form of loyalty to Ogre. Yeah, I think that's what it is too. I think that's what it is. The state of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitudes, especially as relating to behavioral decisions and attitude change. Thank you, Captain Obvious. Yeah, I don't know about that one, man. That's a good question. I guess that's a good point. He doesn't have conflicting beliefs on this, unless... Yeah, that's a yes and a no, man. Fuck, that's... I don't know. I don't know. If I had to pick a pony, I would say maybe. I mean, it's not... Dore himself, his beliefs aren't necessarily conflicted. He's clear on what he wants, and he's clear on what he doesn't like. He doesn't like this narrative. And we're not talking about everything. We're talking about a very specific political context. So we're not even talking about being diametrically opposed in multiple areas. It's just one specific thing, at least for right now. There is no opposition in his thoughts. The cognitive dissonance definition only works if Dore full well believes that TYT is lying. Like, if he believes that Cenk is lying, then yes, it's cognitive dissonance. He would have to be able to accept, yes, these guys are lying and pushing the Russian narrative while I am at the same time on this network pushing the Russian narrative, or not pushing it. And I think this is okay. All of this, to some degree, depends on what's in Jimmy's head. So, I don't think it works. I don't think it works. Believing money has value is cognitive dissonance. Kevin Martinez. Why are so many fucking people, whether it's true or not, completely obsessed with the Russiagate shit to the point where they talk about it more than any other issue? Agreed. Agreed. Agreed, agreed, agreed. Yeah, agreed. Well, they do that because they don't necessarily want to deal with the other issues. I mean, the whole point of the Russia thing is so they don't talk about the other stuff. So, Jimmy is good in my book. Agreed. He speaks his mind when he goes. I do give him... He does not call TYT out on the 20 million. That's that. I don't think he sees it in that way. This is kind of what I mean when I say Jimmy's fine in my book too. So I don't want there to be any confusion on that one. I like Dore. Dore's one of my favorite people on YouTube. No, he wouldn't call him out on that because he doesn't. I don't think he sees it. He doesn't see it. At least not from that standpoint. I don't think he sees it in a way people outside of it sees it. This is one of those perspective issues, man. I mean, look, in order for Harbasser to be right, Dore has to have some kind of conflict in the way he thinks about this stuff. I don't necessarily know if he has a conflict in the way he thinks about it. He just disagrees with Cenk. The only conflict in this case will come to him, meaning him as an individual having something in his head that is diametrically opposed in some way. There is nothing in him that's opposed. He just disagrees with the other show. That's not necessarily cognitive dissonance. Yeah, that's not cognitive. Yeah. I think Jimmy has vertically called out TYT Skip Rock. He is. Oh, man, he is. How could he... The clip that HB showed was him saying, you know, if you're a lefty media network and you're pushing this, you're a useful idiot. Who is... It's like, certainly he knows he's on that network. Now, yeah, certainly he knows he's on the network. Certainly knows he's on the network. Truly agreed. He probably doesn't want to think the worst of a Uyghur. No, he doesn't. Tia Wheeler. No, he doesn't. I think this is kind of our point here, though. I look at this from the standpoint of if we pulled Dore out and Dore wasn't a part of that network, how would Dore behave? Like, assume for the moment Dore is what Dore is now with one exception. He wasn't at TYT. Say Dore had his own channel somewhere else. Say Dore had 50,000 subscribers instead of 200,000-300,000. Say Dore was exactly like Dore is now. What would his perspective be towards TYT? That's what I'm asking. I'm asking someone a more fundamental question. I'm trying to be extremely fair because I'm looking at it from the standpoint of he's friends. Those two guys are friends. He's looking at him and don't want to think the worst. He's assuming the best. It would be like if my friend did something, I would assume the best of that particular person. He's my friend. But we don't do that because we don't know any of these people. We don't know their, we don't know anything about them. So, how many people have left TYT saying the exact same thing? Come on, guys. Michael Wood. Michael Wood, yeah. So, I did too. So, I stopped watching TYT after the primaries. After the primaries, I was done. Like, I watched the Bernie thing, and they had the best coverage of Sanders of any other network, hands down. Like, I had gotten to the point where I had stopped watching during the primaries when Sanders was running. It had pulled me back in, and it was literally rebel headquarters. I fucking loved the network during that time. Absolutely loved it. And again, this is no hard feelings. I don't assume the worst of any of these guys. I don't even assume the worst of Cenk. I don't know him. I look at this purely from the standpoint of these guys are political actors. Not Dore, and I'm just saying they're affiliated with the political system. There's intermingled in those things. That's all. So I look at this as a political thing. When he came on, made the video, said vote Hillary, I was done. I was like, check please. This is where I get off. Thank you very much for your service. And at that point, Anna starts getting pissy and attacking anybody who supported Trump, like Trump supporters. They flipped out on the election night. I mean, it's just fucking weird. It's fucking bizarre. And then it was completely all Trump all the time. And you're like, certainly you understand the world is larger than this. And then the moment that they hit the Russia thing, I was done. There was nothing there. It's even difficult to watch at that point. It's like they're shamelessly pushing the stuff. And then the narratives are just, yeah, it's a different show. It's a fundamentally different show than what it was. At least let me tell it. So, I don't know how everyone else experiences it. That's how I experienced it. At the point where it was like vote Hill, I was done. There were Dore show, I like secular talk every so often. I still get to see. TYT politics, I like. But the main show, oh God, no. Yeah, it's lost me. I canceled as soon as they got $20 million. Treetop Samuelson. Yeah, I do, Michael. I've seen enough evidence to convince me, at least. Election night coverage was hilarious. Anna loses her shit. Yeah, she flipped out. She flipped out big time. She really flipped out that night. Cognitive dissonance, a thing if Justice Democrats didn't attack TYT for the same stuff. Attacks TYT for the same stuff. He sees it, addresses it, just not in a rabid tantrum that some people are demanding. Justin Burton. He does, Justin. Agreed. I mean, look, man, I don't think we would even be having this conversation if it wasn't something that Jimmy Dore did. Meaning, he addresses this. This is kind of why I'm on this thing of I don't think he needs to leave. It's like, why? Why? He has the conversation. He listens. Oh. Thanks, Jess. I think I might have said something wrong. If Jimmy Dore didn't attack TYT for the same stuff, he attacks TYT for the same stuff. He sees it, addresses it. It's just not a rabid tantrum. I think I get your point. He does, yeah, he does address it. When you have a corrupt government, the worst thing you can do is change anything of significance until the corruption is resolved. None of it has. None of it has. That's agreed. A Jimmy for Janet makes the whole world go blind. What? Bingo. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. All right. I'm going to end this. This was kind of gossipy. I just thought it was an interesting conversation. Yeah, it's kind of gossipy. I just thought it was interesting, man. I'm fascinated. Look, let me say it this way. I'm fascinated by what's taking place with TYT and how people perceive TYT, if that makes sense. It's a strange sociological thing. Think of how people were during the election. There was a certain amount of solidarity, and TYT was somewhat of a rallying point for that. I would imagine their coffers filled magnificently after the primaries. I would imagine it did. Now, the question becomes, what happened after the primaries? And they ran against their audience. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that's the worst thing in the world. They did what they needed to do or what they thought was right. But you could see over the course of time, from when Sanders started running to when Sanders lost, you can see the change in the people as they got themselves into the position of, okay, we're going to vote Hillary. particularly Anna. Anna was more interesting on this. When she first started, if you look back at those original shows, she wasn't on board for voting for Hillary at all. At some point, it changed. And not just changed, became openly hostile to anybody who didn't vote for Clinton. So, yeah. After decades of fighting, I can understand him caving and taking the $20 million. See, you guys are putting a negative tint on the $20 million, but we don't know that. We don't know it. We don't know it at all. That being said, let's be honest. If we're using our same standards as we use for everyone else, what would we say about that? I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Jamal would be tepid and kowtow to HB. No, I have no affiliations. Now that's cognitive dissonance, the change of the TYT host. Yeah, going from person. Now, wait a minute. From a network standpoint, maybe. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. So assume for the moment that the network is a thing unto itself. Like Fox News is pretty consistent. Everybody knows what Fox News is. And maybe that's where this is coming in. Maybe that's the weirdness for it. If you don't look at it necessarily as an individual, but you look at it as a network, look at the network as a thing unto itself, as an object. And that particular object has properties like any other object. Corporations are people too, my friend, like Mitt Romney said. And that person is going in two very different directions. You have one part of the network itself screaming about Russia, red baiting, top of their lungs. And the other one saying that what the other one is saying is bunk and ridiculous and nonsense. I guess you can use it in that context. I just don't think he has... Hypocrite maybe works. Cognitive dissonance, depending on how you're using it, I guess maybe it works. But it's an argument. I thought it was an interesting argument. That's all. Anyway, now, I'm seriously pissed. Can't stand those who milk people's better nature for cash. Oh, you think they're milking people's better nature for cash? I don't know if that's true. You're putting dark intents. Like I said, I don't put dark motives on any of these people. This is just their business, their company. It's a capitalistic system. These guys are trying to maximize their profits. The problem that people have is they're trying to maximize their profits. It's like, you know, so. All right. Hillary TV. At some point it became Hillary TV. Forsaken companion. Jamal does the bidding of the Greys. He gets abducted and probed on a weekly basis while giving them his report. What are you calling me a treason? You trying to say I'm committing treason? It's sad. It's like, it's not the issue of being anally probed by aliens. It's the it's the treason part. Remember when Anna said she wouldn't quit if they ever said she couldn't swear? She's still there. She's malleable. Everybody to some degree is malleable. Mark P. Add Apocalypse plus chink ass in a sling for 20 million. Mark P. That's a good point, Mark. That's a good point. But do we know if that happened? I mean, did that happen for them? Like, I know our videos got demonetized, but I don't know if, did that happen for TYT also? For instance, did CNN get their videos hit in that same way? Like, did media networks take the hit in the same way that everyone else took the hit when they did the ad thing, the ad stuff? I don't know, man. Bernie was in my hometown in Austin, and I missed it. Oh, I'm sorry, Marla. I'm sorry. All right, guys, I'm going to end this. This was, for all intents and purposes, just gossip. This was literally just, it's like a bunch of old ladies chatting. Yeah, I didn't think they were touched. Jeremy X, yeah, I didn't think they were hit. I did not think they were hit. I didn't think they were hit. They weren't touched. When people talk about Russia, 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 how people are dealing with it. Also, you can see in their videos in restricted mode. Badger Damon, Adpocalypse was about crushing the little guy. Well, big guys weren't bothered by it. Been without power for days. Nice catching up. Thanks, Jamal and everyone. Jacqueline Thompson. What's happening, Jacqueline? All right, guys. I'm going to end this because I do want to do the UFO video before it gets too late. I still have like 2 other videos that I wanted to do tonight. So I'm going to end this here. And look, over the course of an hour, I don't necessarily remember everything that was said, but I'm hoping that I didn't get anything offensive because I don't necessarily want to be an asshole. But I like Dore, man. And I talk about this because I find this to be interesting because this is lefty media. TYT is a media network. As their media network, and he's a person on a media network. If I was talking about Chuck Todd, if I was talking about anybody else, they seem to be fair game to me. And I say all this stuff with the utmost respect because I like Dore a lot. So none of this is a hit to Dore at all. All of this was discussing the I guess the philosophical point of whether or not Jimmy Dore is experiencing cognitive dissonance. I guess my judgment is it depends. Depends on what you mean by cognitive dissonance. Maybe not him as an individual because he's clear on what he wants, but the network itself is kind of going in two places. So I'll leave it at that. Guys, thank you all for the super cash. It's really appreciated. Wesley Clark, Rob Illinois, A. Maris, and Brom SL1. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. All right, so Jordan seems kind of sad now. What does that mean? What do you mean? Keep your cornbread safe. Who you telling, man? Who you telling? This man tried to take your cornbread. You know, they took Tim Black off. They took him off with something that took place. They took him down. Katie Johnston got her Twitter account taken down. Some asshole was calling her a Nazi or something. She said something back to him and they shut her account down. It's fucking amazing, man. It's crazy. So I want to end this. Hard Bastard is going to be here on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Grant Cameron is going to be here at 5 p.m. Both of those are going to be good. The Grant Cameron one is going to be fucking amazing. So if you're into the UFO stuff, you're going to love that video. I'm about to end this, but Grant Cameron, he's one of my favorite guys on this. And every so often, you know, it's like you read people's literature, or you read or hear their lectures and stuff, and you're like, fuck, man, I would love to meet that person. So I am enamored to have the opportunity to be able to send an invite. And then he actually accepted. It's like, oh, he accepted. He accepted. He said yes. He said yes. So, all right, guys, I am going to end this. I'll see you guys in probably 10 minutes. Thanks, guys.